evening, everybody. This is Woodstock Regional Artists. I'm your host, Sal Miccio, coming to you from my studio in West Hurley, New York, along with our producer, engineer, David Lax, in the control room in Studio A. Tonight's guest is a composer, jazz guitarist, and band leader, Tom DePetris. Tom, good evening.
Good evening, Sal. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure having you, my friend. So let's talk about where you grew up in Long Island and how you started at age 8 playing guitar.
Age 8. I grew up in a small town called Bridgehampton. That's the east end of Long Island. My sister had a guitar laying around her house, and I just picked it up one time, and I didn't know how to play, and I just loved the sound of it. I just threw it on my lap and started playing, and I got bit by the bug. I just kind of knew then that, like, I was enthralled with it. You know, there were no computer games, none of that stuff going on, so I didn't have any of those kind of distractions, and I haven't stopped since.
Terrific. And you attended Berkeley. When did you attend Berkeley?
That was a few years after. When I was 8 years old, they wouldn't let me in. I was
I know that.
You know. I attended Berkeley in the late 70s. You know, Boston's a great town. I mean, musically, that's probably where I got my most development.
Yeah, how important is it to be able to read music these days?
I think it depends on what you're doing. For me, it's important because I like to be able to communicate with other musicians. I compose a lot of music, and the musicians I play with, if I want to communicate with the saxophone player, and we're going to play melodies together, I need to write that down and so that we can play it together. You know, if you're a singer-songwriter and you're playing chords and accompanying yourself, it's probably not quite as important. Or if I'm playing a project, somebody else's project, and they're giving me music, I need to be able to read it and also hear it. So if you can read it and hear it, then you have two things going for you right there. Most guitar players are musically illiterate.
In your early days, you played with a couple of fusion bands, Solar and Round Trip. It says here you had the experience of having Jaco Pastorius play with Round Trip. Tell us about that.
I used to see Jaco on the streets. You know, it was right before he was kind of like losing his marbles. And I would play a little basketball with him, and I said, hey, you know, why don't you come down? My band's playing at the Bitter End on Saturday night. And just never thinking he would come in. Well, he showed up. He came in and sat in with us, and he was singing, and we were playing some shuffles, and then he started getting a little crazy out of hand, and he wouldn't get off the stage. So I had to go up to him and say, Jaco, whispering, Jaco, this is our time. And then I just said, and everyone, give a big hand for Jaco Pastorius, and that was his cue. He had to leave the stage. But, you know, he was always like a hero of mine, you know, and to have him up there and have pictures of it and a video was fabulous.
Yeah, it's terrific.
I had to kick him. I had to kick Jaco Pastorius off
the stage. Amazing. So we're gonna go into your first video here. It's called Hot Tub. And when it's over, we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So here, folks, is Tom DePetris, Hot Tub. Great tune. Good tune. Snappy, upbeat. I liked it. How did that tune come about, Tom?
I wrote that tune when I was in college. And I was at that time I was like really listening to Tower of Power and some of Herbie Hancock's music. I was just kind of getting turned on to some of that stuff. And also, Average White Band had two guitar players that had like these little counterline things going on. You can tell by the melody there's some Earth, Wind, and Fire kind of influence in there. And it was really one of Roundtrip's jam tunes. This version obviously is myself playing the chords, and then I'm kind of playing a duet with myself, which is kind of fun in itself.
Your bio says that your driving force is the spirit of the moment.
Most of the musicians I play with, we have a lot of interaction. Well, we hope to have a lot of interaction. So the spirit of the moment, we kind of go in with, a set list, some tunes that we know, but they sound different each time. So we're trying to communicate, make some change. So the spirit of that moment is what is special. Because if we play the same tune the next night, maybe it won't be as good, or maybe it'll be better, but it'll be just the spirit of that moment, the communication that we get at that moment. That's
like it says here, it's the energy of the moment.
Yeah.
And of course, the New York Times picked up on that, talking about the energy, virtually bursting with energy. How'd you get written up in the New York Times?
That was a band called Solar. I brought these guys down from Boston, and we were playing in the Hamptons. The timing was right. We were this Hamptons phenomenon for about 3 years, packing places, playing a lot of dance music, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Stevie Wonder. There was great material in those days. Crowds of people would come dance, and so we just people were starting to do great write-ups on us. And the guy from the New York Times came and wrote this really long article, and it really catapulted my gigs for at least another decade.
All right, I think we'll go into your second video now. It's called Untitled Waltz. sounds nice and mellow, Tom. What gave you the influence to write that tune?
I just love the tune. I love playing the tune. It's a tune that I can play either by myself as a guitar piece. It just makes me feel really good to play it. But it's very chordal. The chords are really sweet. The progression, the melody is, to my ear, very pretty. I remember I played it once for a couple of friends when I first wrote it years ago, and this one friend, she left the room while I was playing it. I said, "What the hell is this about?" She's walking out while I'm playing this brand new tune. And I was told later on, I thought it was kind of rude. I was told later on she started crying because the tune touched her.
Emotion.
I think there's something about that tune I just still love to play.
It says here in 1980 you were co-founder of a band called Minus One, and you had an album out called Back from Europe. How about tell us about that?
The drummer that I was playing with, he's from Andrea Marcassini is his name. He's back in Europe now. And it was an album that he produced. I think Mike Stern played on it, Gerardo Velez, who played with Spyro Gyra. Everyone was a composer in that band. So I got a couple of my tunes. That was when CDs were first coming out. Mm-hmm. So first it came out on vinyl, and then it was transferred onto CDs. You
played at some nice places in the city and the area. I've been to a couple of these places. I'd never been to Birdland. The Bitter End, the Rainbow Room, the Village Gate. You really got around in the city back then.
I was also freelancing at that. I was playing in 2 or 3 bands of my own. I was so busy before I had children.
Right.
I was playing in a lot of different groups, and I was doing a lot of studio things as well for other people as well as myself. I lived in New York City for about 15 years. So I was really kind of part of that scene.
So let's go into the next tune here. It's called Keep It Coming. That had a sweet ending. I love that ending, Tom.
Uh,
Tell us about Keep It Coming.
Keep It Coming. I wrote that just about a month and a half ago. During quarantine, I have actually written 3 tunes. And
Excellent.
actually today I just got them down all on paper and arranged. I've been just kind of like playing them and making, making me feel good. That tune has obviously some blues swing influence. I haven't even showed it to the band yet, to the quartet, and I'm looking forward to having the boys play it, which is Charles Frommer, Lou Pappas, and Jim Carroll. Those guys are in my band now. And, well, our next gig with the band will be at Lydia's September 19th, so we have plenty of time to rehearse them.
What kind of guitar do you play?
It's a Gibson 175 thin line. So this is it right here. I don't know if I can fit it all in. But I've had a different pickup installed. It's a split coil, so I can get some funky, kind of like a Fender-ish sound. And have put in a master volume where I like to do those little swells. I don't know if you heard that on a couple of the tunes I was doing. That's part of my vocabulary for improvising. And I had some new frets put on, again, a really long time ago, and it's in really good condition, 1977.
Wow.
Yep.
It's a beauty.
I love it. It's the only one I play.
Uh-huh.
It's the only guitar I have. I'm not a guitar collector.
So you were a sideman for some nice people here. Randy Brecker, Cyndi Lauper, Del Shannon, the Coasters, and the Marvelettes. Some of my favorite groups there. How did you get involved backing up them?
They're all like different times and places. Cyndi Lauper came to a school called St. Augustine School of the Arts in the South Bronx, where I used to teach in the 80s and early 90s. And the school was like in this oasis in the middle of a very, difficult neighborhood, especially in those days. And she was there for a fundraiser. So the group that I played with were faculty members from that school, and she had heard about the school. We were getting a lot of airplay, and we were on 60 Minutes. We were on World News Tonight, and there was a documentary, Sundance documentary done on the school called Something Within Me. And she wanted to help out and raise money. So the faculty members, backed her up. She sang old jazz standards, by the way.
Oh, wow.
On that particular.
Really?
Yeah, which is, and there's a picture of her someplace. And Del Shannon, the Marvelettes, that was a gig I played with, again, backing up those bands. We had like a half hour each to rehearse with them. It was someplace upstate New York. It was so long ago, I don't even remember where it was, but it was kind of nice to interact with these people.
The Coasters.
No, yeah, so they were part of that whole thing with the Marvelettes.
Yakety yak. I was once a bouncer for those type of the Coasters, and I had to wear a police shirt and was a bouncer.
Oh, really? Don't any pictures of that?
Your style is everything from classic bop to cool sounds. And tell me, how do you describe your style?
I just loved playing a lot of different styles of music. When I went to college, and especially when I went to Berkeley as well, I started hearing Latin jazz and samba, bossa nova. I like the avant-garde. I like the avant-garde jazz too. I love it. It all influences me. I like music that has a good groove to it. So stylistically, a lot of blues. I have a lot of blues background. So stylistically, it just depends on what I'm playing. I like to try to be as authentic as possible, especially if I'm playing with someone else's group. I'm not going to be throwing bebop licks if we're playing a funk tune or a singer-songwriter type of thing. So
right.
I just even my writing, I have a whole lot of different things, and it's so much fun. Not only as a player, but I think the people who listen, particularly to my group, that we play a lot of different styles with different influences.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you.
So, Tom, you work as a functional fitness person. Tell us about Woodstock Functional Fitness.
Okay.
And what you do.
It's something that Woodstock Functional Fitness is something that I started about 5 years ago out of my home. I've always been a fitness health enthusiast. Before I went to Berkeley, I got a degree in physical education, which I
Okay.
never really, music took over. So,
Uh-huh.
but I was always, very much into exercising, staying healthy. I train athletes. I also train older adults. I've trained people who have come out of surgery, come out of physical therapy. So I have a wide array of different kinds of trainings, safe and very personable.
Noticed on Facebook a lot of your scuba diving photos and
Uh,
videos. That's an enjoyable sport. You've been involved in that for quite a bit now, haven't you?
yeah, well, I first got certified in 1987. And I've been going to Roatan, Honduras, probably like twice a year if I can. I do a lot of underwater photography, diving down there, and I'm playing some music down there with a whole set of new friends.
That's great.
Yeah, right?
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're
So
welcome.
now I think we'll go into the last video, which is called Megabyte.
Hmm.
This is with the quartet. Who's in this quartet?
That's with Jim Carroll on drums, we go back about 30 years. Lou Pappas on bass, probably been playing with him for at least 10 years, and Charles Frommer on tenor sax, and at least 6 or 7 with Charles. So this is one of the pieces that we play together. A tune that I wrote, kind of a standard.
And without further ado, this is the Tom DePetris Quartet and Megabyte. All right, nice upbeat tune. Enjoyed that very much. So, Tom, where can people find your music these days?
Okay, so whenever I play a gig, I post it on Facebook. So if you go to Tom DePetris on Facebook, you'll get to see and hear some videos, and you'll get to find out where we're playing next. I spend most of my time just kind of doing the spirit of the moment.
Spirit of the moment.
Kind of like the live things is what I'm more into. And although I'm hoping to get into Dave Lax's studio sooner than later and record some more of my original music.
We look forward to. We really look forward to that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the place to be.
We're all looking forward to that.
Yeah, I hear you.
Tom, it's been an enjoyable evening talking with you and listening to your music. I really appreciate you coming aboard. I just want to close with a quote of yours that says, "Pursuing the unknown is what keeps it fresh." And thank you all for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday with another special guest. Until then, be safe and support your local musicians in any way you can. Thank you and good night.